Welcome everybody to today's broadcast. We are talking about electric magnetic fields and 5G. You might have seen these in the news. They're in the news quite often, but we want to really identify what they are, how you can shield them from your health and shield them from other environmental toxins. And I am here with somebody by the name of R. And his last name is blank. And that is his real name. And just like my name's T, his name's R, but my name's really Therese. And he really was born with the name R. And we kind of got a kick out of that because we're two initials today in the alphabet. So thanks for joining me, R.
Hi, T. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
You're welcome. So R is the CEO of Shield Your Body, whose mission is to make technology safer. We all need safer technology. So with hundreds of thousands of customers in over 30 countries and having been interviewed on platforms ranging from ABC to Electric Sense, R is an internationally followed expert on issues of EMF, health, and safety. He was inspired to create SYB, otherwise known as Shield Your Body, when he co-authored the best-selling book Overpowered with his father, Dr. Martin Blank, one of the world's leading EMF scientists, and he owns a degree from Columbia University and UCLA. And his father is also a big crossword puzzle guru, which hence his first name R and maybe also his last name blank. So he could also probably be, what's the game where you put all the letters and I can't even think about
Scrabble. Oh yeah, Scrabble. He was fantastic at Scrabble.
So blank, you're always wanting a blank one at Scrabble too. So, and laughter is good medicine. So why not us laugh about our names, correct?
Indeed.
So here we are. Live from Buffalo, New York, and Panama coming to you where R is. And R, you have a rich history of your own personal background. So give us a little bit about that, because I like going back so we know where we're going in the future.
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, in the most people don't ask me about this anymore, but in the pre-SYB days, I was a software engineer. So spent about 20 years. It started out in the 90s, actually during college. So obviously right after college, but even during college, I just learned how to build websites. And then after college, got a job building websites. And then shortly after that, founded my first software company, which was a music streaming service. This was back in the days of Napster and stuff. And then after that, started a second company, and that's the one where we created the first video encoder for Flash, which now is kind of a dead technology, but in the day was pretty significant in terms of expanding what you could do on the internet and on the web in particular in terms of communicating media and messages. So I was doing software engineering for a long time, and I was also teaching on the software engineer. Well, I was teaching software engineering at the engineering school of University of Southern California, and my father in about 2012 was trying to write what became Overpowered. And my father, obviously a very accomplished scientist and speaker, and published a lot of papers, but a lot of his writing was really focused on, being written for other academics, other scientists. The purpose of Overpowered was to kind of bring it into the mainstream, to explain to regular people what the science really says about the health effects of exposure to EMF. So he asked me for some help. By that point, like I said, I was teaching. I'd also written a book. And so I hopped in and joined him. And obviously he was my father. I grew up with him, so I always kind of knew what he did. But it was really in the course of writing that book that I really was exposed to just how strong the science is in this area. And this was almost 10 years ago now. So the science is even much stronger now.
Right.
But I learned a lot about EMF, the behavior of EMF, what the science says, And that was when I was inspired to create SYB. And so that's kind of how I got from there to here.
That is great. And you also understand how technology works too. And you have that in your background, and marrying your background with your dad's background is pretty fascinating. And what we want to talk about are the health effects,
Yep.
which is what you are very knowledgeable about, and which your products can help with, shielding some of these EMFs and 5G, which I am pretty familiar. So let's start at the beginning, what an EMF is and what 5G is.
Sure. So EMF stands for electromagnetic field, and it is a type of energy that is composed of an electrical component and a magnetic component. So it's an electromagnetic field. Now, some EMF is natural. So everyone knows visible light. We look up at the sun, we go outside, we see light. Light, visible light, like we get from the sun, is a natural form of EMF. Now, there's certain types of EMF with much more energy than visible light. And those include X-rays and gamma rays, even UV rays. And everyone knows those are incredibly harmful, even in very, very, very low doses. That's why you're supposed to minimize the number of X-rays you get, and why the X-ray technician leaves the room while you're getting them done, because you really want to have as little of that stuff as possible. Now, there's forms of EMF with less energy than visible light. These are, it's not important why they're called this, but you might hear them referred to as non-ionizing forms of EMF. And so that includes everything that that comes off of everything we use to communicate wirelessly. So cell phones and Wi-Fi, but even older technology like TV and FM radio and radar. And then as you get less and less energy, you have what's known as a extremely low frequency. And that's the kind of stuff that comes off of power lines and electrical appliances. So just to try to contextualize, I said some EMF is natural until about, it depends where you live, but until about 1850, the only type of EMF that people was exposed to was the natural form. So that would include visible light, that would include EMF from lightning and Earth's own magnetic field. Since the invention of the light bulb, and then of course the power grid to power the light bulb, then all of these appliances to run off the power grid, then wireless technology. So the amount of human-made artificial EMF has been growing exponentially for 150, 160 years now.
And then where does 5G come in there?
Sure. So 5G is the 5th generation of cell phone technology, cell phone networks. So, for the past 10 years or so, we've looked down at our phone and we see a 4G signal. And then when we look, before that, we looked down at our phone and we saw 3G written on it. That goes all the way back to 1979 when they had 1G, the first generation. I don't think they might not have called it that then, not until 2G and 3G came out. But 5G is now the newest form. And what has people worried about 5G is that 5G is going to be utilizing newer, higher energy forms of EMF radiation to communicate. And so whereas we've been exposed basically in terms of wireless communication, we've been exposed basically up to 8 gigahertz. 5G is going to go up to 300 gigahertz.
Oh, wow.
And and those have never been used before in consumer technology. And there is absolutely no long-term testing into its health effects.
Yeah, I see a lot of information out there. I'm on so many different newsletters and magazines and publications and Facebook groups and whatnot. And I see a lot of controversy with 5G and a lot of people talking about it. And but that helps explain it. Are you nervous about 5G?
Well, so to say it's been released without any long-term studies into the health effects, it sounds shocking and it's very irresponsible, but it's also how industry has been doing this stuff. Wi-Fi was released without any long-term studies. Cell phones were released without any Bluetooth was released without any studies into long-term health effects. It's only in the years and decades following the release that we learn what the health effects are, and we are the lab subjects. We are the guinea pigs. What worries me about 5G is, and I've been talking about this recently to my mailing list and on my blog, 5G, when people talk about 5G, they talk about it as a cell phone network. And it is a cell phone network. They're marketing 5G phones. They're putting up 5G antennas to power those phones. But 5G was designed from the ground up to support much more than just cell phones. And so 5G was built to support smart cars and smart meters and smart tech that fills the home. And the amount of smart tech that, I mean, yes, we all know about Alexa speakers and Nest thermostats, but there's smart fridges and there's smart kitty litter boxes. And there's even a smart tampon on the market now. And,
okay,
and so,
I know. I just bought a dishwasher, that smart dishwasher. I'm like, why do I need a smart dishwasher?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so what worries me about 5G is that it has created basically that, well, they are in the process of creating it because it is not fully deployed, but they are creating a superhighway to power an order of magnitude greater number of these wireless devices. Things that we never needed to be smart before are going to be smart. And increasingly, we are not going to have a choice in whether we buy, if you want a new TV, it's going to be a smart TV. If you want a new fridge, it's going to be a smart, if you want a new dishwasher, it's going to be a smart dishwasher. And so with each of these things that we add into our environments, we are adding more exposures to this toxin. And that is what worries me about 5G, is that it is going to lead to an order of magnitude explosion in the number of sources from which we are exposed to this toxin.
Wow. And who's benefiting from all this?
Well,
I mean, manufacturers, or
the tech. I mean, the tech industry is. I mean, we see the valuations of some of these technology companies. So that is who benefits from all. It's the hardware makers, the software makers, and the network providers.
Okay. Yep. Interesting. So, and we don't know much about it, and we don't know how it's going to affect our health.
That's not entirely. We do know a lot about.
Oh, we know a lot about
stuff.
It, right? But not how it affects us.
Well, we don't know about exactly how this new batch of technology is going to affect us because it's being released without any testing. But we now have decades and decades of research into what the prior generations of wireless technology have done. And there are literally thousands of high quality scientific studies pointing to a wide range of negative health effects on the low end, or I don't mean to say low, but on the less severe end, anxiety and sleep disruption and issues such as that. And then on the higher end, or the more severe, you have really concerning outcomes, including infertility, miscarriage, and many types of cancers.
And it affects your immune system, which can send your whole body and health into all different areas of illnesses.
That's a great point, because one of the things that you'll see when you actually look at the science is that the range of outcomes that have been linked to EMF exposure, they impact almost every system in our bodies. So it's not as though, I mean, for a couple of decades now, you hear people worried that cell phones might cause brain tumors. But it's not as though it's just cancer or it's just the brain. You're seeing severe negative health outcomes in so many of our body systems. And there's a very strong body of science showing how EMF harms and can even kill DNA, leading to double strand breaks, basically destroying the DNA to the point where the cell dies. These are the same types of mutations that lead to tumors and cancer, but they also lead to cellular malfunction, which then leads the biological systems to not perform properly. We are electromagnetic beings. And I don't say that in a spiritual sense, although, I'm spiritual. I'm sure many of your listeners are, but that's not what I mean. I mean it in the scientific sense. Our brains communicate with our bodies using electromagnetic signals, but super low power. And once you expose this electromagnetic body to these high-powered electromagnetic signals, your body doesn't know what to do with it. And that is why we are seeing so many negative outcomes in science.
So, and as you know, I'm trying to help people keep toxic chemicals out of their home, out of their lives, to reduce their toxic load. And then I can just imagine if somebody is full of toxic environmental toxic chemicals from all the products they use, and then they're overloaded with EMFs. I mean, our body can only handle so much of these harmful things that come at it. And
Totally.
yeah, and it's just, I mean, it's overwhelming for people. I mean, and I know all about it. Sometimes overwhelming for me even, because there's so much that we have to be worried about. And I think people look at EMF and even 5G like they can't smell it, they can't see it. And I feel like people kind of just turn their nose at it a little bit. I try to tell them to do at least some of this, some things that you can do that aren't going to take your phone away from you. Don't sleep with it underneath your pillow. Do some things that can reduce it at least.
Yeah.
Right.
So there are a lot of things that people can do to reduce that can make a big difference. I understand exactly what you're talking about, where like you said, you can't see, smell, touch, taste it. Mm-hmm. B, it's actually sort of a complicated topic if you want to really learn about it. C, a lot of people really enjoy the devices that lead to these exposures. Mm-hmm. So you combine all this together, and there's a real reluctance to do anything about it. And it can also be a contributing factor to that is, if and I see this a lot in people who are just learning about the subject, who come to Shield Your Body. You can feel overwhelmed, right? Because once you start learning that this stuff is toxic and you start realizing it's everywhere you go, that you can feel like, what can I possibly do? Like as soon as I turn on my Wi-Fi, I see 30 networks. As soon as I go outside, I see 3 cell towers, and then a block away, I see 3 more, and so on and so on. So to your point, it is very important that people learn that there are very powerful things that you can do to reduce your exposure to this stuff. And it comes down to the two, what I call the 2 key rules of EMF protection. So the first is minimizing your use. It's quite obvious when you think about it, but the fewer of these devices that you use, the less you're going to be exposed to it. That doesn't mean giving up your phone, but like you just said, you just bought a smart dishwasher, and you're like, why do I need a smart dishwasher?
I didn't buy
you got
it.
Oh, okay, very good.
I did not get the smart. My mother always taught me that the more bells and whistles you have on it, the more bells and whistles you have to get fixed. Just get the basic. So I got the
exactly.
basic.
But as they roll out more and more and more of this smart technology, really think about, do I need it? Will I actually get value from it? Because a lot of this we don't actually get value from. People just buy it because they think it's cool, or their friends are buying it, or that's where things are going. And you really sit down and think about it. What would I actually use a smart fridge for, as opposed to a regular fridge? Do I really need another Alexa in my bedroom? Do I really need a smart kitty litter box? Do I really need a smart thermostat? All of these things, you really think it's not about giving up your phone. It's about, with all of these devices, do you really get value out of them? Because you have to engage in a cost-benefit analysis where the cost is increased to your health risk. So number 1 is minimizing the use. But number 2, and this one is key and somewhat less intuitive, it is to maximize the distance. So from the source of EMF, so if you're using a new smart device, or even your phone or your Wi-Fi or whatever wireless device you are using, keep as far away from it as possible. And the reason this is so important is because the power of the exposure diminishes exponentially with distance. So that means as you double the distance from the source, you are cutting the power of the exposure by 75%. And that's why, as one example I say all the time, is never carry your phone in your pocket. because when you're carrying your phone in your pocket, it's right up against you and you are getting the maximum dose possible from that device.
What about men? I mean, you have to put them in your pocket or sport coat, right?
Yeah. So I happen to be a man, so I can speak to this one. Well, so some men carry backpacks or briefcases. It can
Right.
go in there.
Right.
I always put it into airplane mode before I put it into my pocket.
Interesting.
And when you
Okay.
put a device into airplane mode, you're cutting out virtually all of the EMF emissions from that device because it's
Okay.
not trying to communicate. And so the airplane mode is a super powerful tool, by the way. And some people, because they think they can't do it, like that I need, what if someone calls me? What if someone texts me? I need to get, but you don't really. When it's in your pocket, you don't. Now, there are also shielding products like the ones I make and sell.
Oh, right.
So
Yeah,
what I
let's
told
talk
you were
about those.
so there's the two key rules of EMF protection, which is minimize use and maximize distance. Those are free. Anyone can put those into practice themselves. And those are the most effective way to reduce your personal exposure. But there are some people who need to or feel they need to carry their phones in their pockets. A good example is people who need to carry their phones for work, delivery people,
Right.
Or maintenance workers who need to have their phone on them and on. They can't put it into airplane mode. And so, for instance, I make a phone pouch, the SYB phone pouch, which is it's a pouch you put your phone in, and the back of the pouch is shielded, and the front of the pouch is not. And so what that does is it deflects most of the radiation away from your body while still allowing your phone to work. Because if you fully,
yeah. Does it cut down on are there any negative, traits to that? Does it cut down on the
reception?
Signal, the reception? Yeah.
No, so it was designed specifically because you have to, with all of these, there's so many cell towers around.
Right.
The signal from your phone is still going to reach one.
Okay.
If you fully wrapped so my products make use of EMF shielding materials. These are based on science that goes back almost 200 years to where Michael Faraday created, you may have heard of the Faraday cage, which is a cage that you can put over and you can put around electronics, for instance, to shield all of the communication because it blocks EMF. And so my products use materials based on the same principles that when you weave conductive metallic fibers together, it can form a shield to block and deflect EMF radiation away. So that's how my products work. And if you were to fully wrap your phone in a shielding material, then A, you would interfere with the signal.
Okay.
And B, the way your phone would respond is actually by boosting the power. Because when your phone has interference, it boosts its power of its output to overcome that interference. So you never want to fully shield your devices, but my products are designed in ways, like I said, with the phone pouch, to provide shielding between the device and your body without interfering with your device's functionality.
Now I have these things, and I don't know if I've had this on there for a while. It's like a little, it's all worn off, but I don't know if you carry stuff like that or if that even is something that works.
So
you probably know what it is, don't you?
I don't know which brand you have on there. I was looking through your store.
Yeah, it's a little, I don't know what it is either, but
it's okay. I prefer not to comment.
Yeah, no, I agree.
On specific brands anyway.
That's fine, but what I'm talking about is a little circle. I see them on people's phones all the time.
Stickers and pendants.
Yeah. Is that something that you sell?
I have never seen.
Recommend?
No, it's not something I sell. All of my products are based off of, like I was saying, the shielding technology.
Okay.
And for shielding to work, it can't be a little dot, right? It needs to be big enough to actually shield. Yeah. Now, there are the type of product you just showed me is a very popular type of product.
Right.
All I can say is I have never seen science, not only that shows that it works, but that even actually explains what it's claiming to do. I don't believe that there is just something you can stick on a phone and it makes the EMF safe or healthy, but I'd be open to it if someone could explain it to me and show me
Further,
science
yeah.
to support it. But it doesn't even make sense to me that you can just make these forces healthy. It just doesn't.
Okay. I wondered myself, to tell you. My sister gave
Yeah.
it to me. And I'm like, I have no idea, but I'm gonna do what you tell me to do. If it's
Yeah.
so, I'll have to look into that a little bit further. And again, I know a lot about environmental toxins. I've been wanting to learn so much more about EMFs because I know how they can harm your health. And cancer is one of my areas that I help people get rid of carcinogens in their homes. And I know EMFs can potentially cause cancer. Or has
Yeah.
that been actually proven?
Well, scientific, I don't want to be too in the weeds here,
Right.
but it depends what you mean by proven, because science isn't a court of law. Although to that point, in Italy, it is actually legal precedent that cell phones cause brain tumors. That is established law, and it was upheld on appeal.
Interesting.
Now, when
I
you
did not
say
know
was it
that.
proven?
Okay.
Yeah, but when you say was it proven, there are multiple studies that show that this type of radiation causes multiple different types of cancer. So you have certain types of brain tumors, but you have thyroid tumors and thyroid cancer. You have colorectal cancer. You have breast cancer. There's multiple studies showing that these types of cancers result from EMF radiation.
Wow.
Also, I wanted to point out, because you were talking about sensitivities, because I deal a lot with people who have sensitivities to EMF radiation. And what you see is often the case is people who have other toxic conditions, whether that is Lyme disease or MCS, multiple chemical sensitivity, or mold toxicity. They are among the most sensitive to EMF. And so you see that these toxic states of health tend to lead to increased sensitivity or vulnerability to other toxins. At least that's what we're seeing with people that we interact with.
Well, it makes sense. It definitely makes sense. I have a sister with an autoimmune disorder, and she has to be so careful about anything that comes at her. And she's the one that knows a lot about EMFs, and she's got some devices, I'm sure probably some of yours, and I'll look into this further, but otherwise the EMFs can really offset her immune system and can make her, she's got a mitochondrial disorder, and it can really just put her in the hospital by just, if it's a combination of, even laundry detergent coming out of somebody's vent can affect her, and then EMFs can affect her sleep and everything else. So that's interesting. And just for people to understand how powerful these magnetic fields are.
And there's a 2009 paper from a scientist, very well-respected scientist named Ollie Johansson out of Europe. And he surveyed multiple other studies on this particular question of immune system response. And he found that the consensus among the papers he analyzed is that EMF exposure has the same effect as taking immunosuppressive drugs. So that when you're exposed to EMF, I know you understand this, but for your listeners, it has the same effect as taking these drugs that are designed to suppress your immune system's ability to function.
Wow.
And this is, again, by surveying multiple studies.
Interesting. A lot of good information here. So on I want to ask you about cell phone safety regulations too. They're designed not to protect the consumer. Is that correct?
Yes.
And
yes.
why is that, or how is that?
Sure. Well, there's a lot of reasons, and I don't want to bore you or your audience, so I'll try to cover just some of the.
Well, everybody's got a cell phone, so I think everybody should be concerned, and should be interested in this, because it's fascinating to me. And whenever I talk to anybody about, you've got to watch your. Anyways, go on. Give us your.
Sure. So this type of radiation that cell phones give off, it's also known as microwave radiation, and your listeners might recognize that term because some of them may have an oven in their kitchen called a microwave oven. And that oven works by using microwave radiation with such high power that it can actually cook food, right? So we know that when this type of radiation is strong enough, it can actually heat and cook food, and including human tissue. Now, what regulations are designed for is to make sure that your phone or your Wi-Fi or whatever device you're talking about doesn't emit so much radiation that it cooks you. That's it. It's called the thermal effect. And if they're interested, they can look it up. That is specifically what the regulations are designed to prevent. So if there's any health effects from any level less than that, the regulations aren't even designed to protect you, because they don't recognize. The regulations were formed, the current set of regulations were formed in 1996. So that's 25 years ago, based on science that is, I mean, we now have a quarter century of more scientific information at our disposal, but the regulations haven't changed. But that's not the worst part of it, right? So the federal government sets a limit to how much radiation a device can emit. So a lot of people think that means the federal government tests these products to see if they do, how much radiation they emit, if they exceed their allowed levels. The fact is, though, that the government doesn't. What happens is the companies themselves test this stuff and then report it to the government. And what you find is not only does that create room and incentive to cheat, you actually find cheating. So there's an example from the past few years in France where the French government actually audited these radiation levels. So they tested, I forget the exact number, it's on the order of 300 phones, different types of phones that are available on the market. And they found that 90% of these phones emitted more radiation than their stated level. So 90% of the phones had lied about what their rate, and several of the models emitted more than legally permissible and were actually pulled from the market.
Wow.
So you see that the regulations, the levels that they protect against, they're not even sufficient. But even that, they create room for companies to lie and deceive consumers about what their devices actually emit. And again, there's a lot more I could go into, but there is one more point that I think is very, very, very important for people to understand. These SAR regulations, how much radiation, which measure how much radiation a phone can emit, they are based on how much radiation is absorbed by a 220 or 240 pound man who is over 6 feet tall. That's how they measure it. That most of humanity weighs less and is smaller than that. But what you really have are a bunch of kids who come nowhere close to that. And so these regulations, even if they were sufficient to protect a 6 foot tall, 220 pound man, they come nowhere near close to being sufficient to protect children who absorb more of this radiation and are more vulnerable to damage from this type of radiation.
Right.
And so those are just a few examples of how this stuff is not regulated to protect our health. One final example I will say is everything I've just been saying about is cell phones, you know, and they are a big source of a lot of people's exposures, but we get exposed to EMF from a lot of different sources. EMF from power lines EMF emissions from power lines is essentially not regulated at all. And you have a lot of different sources of EMF in our environment where the emissions are not regulated at all. So it's not even that they're pretending to regulate and they're failing, they're just not doing it. So the end result is we are not protected. Our safety and our health is not protected by regulations from exposure to EMF radiation.
And that goes across the board with environmental toxins and all the chemicals out there. It's not being, just for record, the rules, laws in the United States are, you are innocent until you're proven guilty. So these chemical companies, and this is probably similar, can put whatever they want in their product until they have a problem with it or somebody sues them and then the government looks at it. Unlike the European Union, you have to prove it's safe before you can put it on the market, which is backwards to me, but that's how things are done in the United States. And that is why you need to protect yourself and be your own advocate, be your own health advocate, and avoid as best you can all of these chemicals and EMFs and 5Gs that are coming at you by using products that are on the market that are better for you and protect you from some of these harmful electromagnetic fields. So
Yes.
on that note, we have a wonderful company here that has called it's called Shield Your Body, SYB. And you can find out a lot more information from his website that is shieldyourbody.com. You can follow him on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn. We will post all of that, but I'm sure you can find it easily on his website. Now, we have so much great information here. Is there anything that we missed that we want to share with everybody?
No, I just want to reiterate, thank you, by the way, again, for having me and allowing me to share this information with your audience. I want to reiterate that even though we are exposed to this stuff from more and more and more devices and sources every day and every year, that it is what we do with the sources most in our control, the cell phone in our pocket, the Wi-Fi router in our house. It is what we do with the things that are most in our control that can have the biggest impact on our safety and on our health and on the health of our loved ones. And so that's why I want to reiterate the two key rules again: minimize your use of EMF emitting technology and maximize the distance between your body and the technology when in use. I have a free guide available at the website that you just said, at shieldyourbody.com. It's right there. If you go, it's right there. It's at the top. Just click get the guide. It has the 5 most effective ways to implement those 2 key rules in your life and more information about why they actually work, the science underlying this for those who are interested in this stuff. I would also say, as a quick final note, as we kind of hinted at a little bit earlier, there is a lot, just like cell phones are not regulated, EMF protection is not regulated either. And so when you are you don't have to buy from me, but when you are evaluating EMF protection products, look at what they can use to substantiate their claims. If you look on my site, we have independent lab testing of all of my shielding products. We have videos showing tests with meters. You can see for yourself how it works and you can learn how to test it for yourself. Again, you don't have to buy from me, but whatever EMF protection you are considering buying, look at what the actual claims are and what they can use to substantiate the claims.
Great information, and having them tested, third-party testing, is it right? Is that what you do? Yeah.
Yes.
Which is great that you do that, because I mean, there's a lot of things on the market out there that don't do that. And you always want to look for that to make it healthier and safer for you. So thank you so much for all of your information. Everything that you are doing, your products that you're providing are going to help people. And I'm sure they have helped people for many years try to avoid all of these EMFs that are coming at us. I know I'm going to be ordering some things because I get worried. I mean, I sit here with all of this power around me all day, and I'm starting to slowly do some of the things you said to, and I'm looking into getting actually a timer for the Wi-Fi so it
That's
goes
a great idea.
Off at night. I thought, why not, right? Somebody said, turn off your Wi-Fi. So turn it off from 11 to 5 in the morning when you get up, and why have it running through your house the whole time? And then I've got the boosters too, which is boosting it throughout the house too. We don't need it. So thank you for all of your advice here today, and this has been wonderful.
Thank you so much. Again, I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yep. The more information we get out there, the better, on how we can help people protect their bodies from things electromagnetic fields and toxins, the better, because potentially you are avoiding many illnesses along the way. So that's what we're here for, to help protect everybody, right?
Indeed. Shield your body, everyone.
Shield your body. Sign